Hi, Vedas. I think you're asking how to determine, like when we're finding sine or cosine or tangent, we had the x over r, y over r, and y over x, how to tell which one of these is which. And that's actually why I don't love that labeling system. Let me pop over to this version so I can point at the formula. In this case, we're looking for cosines, and it's relative to this angle up here, alpha. When the angle isn't in standard position, I'm going to redraw it over here in standard position in just a second. It could be really kind of, you got to do some mental gymnastics to figure out which one is, I'm making some air quotes here, x, and which one is y. We know for cosine, actually let me give myself a little more room. We know for cosine of an angle that we are either going to find x over r, and we can also think of it as the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And this is where I kind of like the adjacent over the hypotenuse is when this thing has gotten rearranged, because adjacent to this angle is the 9. And so that's pretty easy to see. If we're looking at theta, the adjacent would be 12. But 12 is definitely the opposite for alpha, and 9 is definitely the adjacent. And then hypotenuse, of course, is the one opposite 90. And I think you already figured out that was 15 when you did the math on that. So adjacent 9, hypotenuse. If you do Pythagorean theorem, you'll get 15 there, which I think you already did. And reducing our fraction, we get 9/3. To see this in terms of x and y, let me draw this way instead. So I'm kind of putting this in standard position where there's alpha kind of opening the direction we're used to, and then theta would be up here on the small side, and this is 15, and this is, oops, I'm about to refer to it as x, but this is 9, and then the long side was 12. And so, no sticky note. No, go away from that. Oh well. We'll just leave that there then. And so, if I draw it in this position, it is easier, I think, to see that the x is right here and the y is right here. And that can be really tricky when the triangle isn't in the orientation you're used to. If you end up taking physics, you'll do these free body diagrams of boxes on planes, and you have like a normal force or gravity and a normal force. And you have to start figuring out what these angles are, where it's all kind of like jumbled up in this sort of weird drawing. That's where I really like adjacent and hypotenuse better, because then you're just like, okay, if that's my angle, this is adjacent, this is opposite. And it gets really easy to tell if you use those words instead of the letters. So I think that's what you're asking. And so once you're out of standard position, to me, I prefer that designation just to kind of keep my brain straight. Hopefully that answered the question, but do give me a follow-up if that wasn't what you're asking.